He's 22. Yep. You figure this out. Hold your hand. He's got it. So it's the summer. Go. Okay. Harken for 3 months. Yes, sir. All that school day. They have a Christmas tree. Right. You can find some old school right away, and they sign the lease, so they need to somewhat. They need to somewhat. Yeah. Yeah. The only problem is you don't get to pick who your roommate is. Right. So, yeah, we moved him out. He's working at Best Buy. He's working at Good. Yeah. Yeah. Looks like it's for me. The biggest part I've seen a 22-year-old kid have. Yeah.
So I was thinking, this is my thought, then we can see Eric and we don't have to go like this and we'll still have our face there now.
Oh, nice.
Is that, I'm like, then I was like, well, if we do this,
And you might also see some of the stuff.
right? Well, yeah, because we're always trying to do this and
Yeah,
then,
I know.
and then I'm not looking there and I see us on the video later and we look like we're distracted. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. You want to? Yeah, I'm not staying away from 2 you were worried about those steps. Okay. Yep.
Good evening. It being 6 o'clock, more or less, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Enfield Board of Selectmen for June 6, 2022. We'll begin with the approval of, no, we're going to begin, I think, by reflecting on someone who has departed from us, Don Crate, a good friend of mine. We met in the first grade. He was very involved with the town throughout his life, most notably as a selectman of the town of Enfield. I think we once figured out around 30 years of service, which is remarkable. So we could have just a moment of silence and think some good thoughts. Thank you. So the approval of the minutes of May 16, 2022, regular and non-public session. I've read them over. I like them.
I'll move approval as printed for both sets of minutes.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Board reports. Eric, do you have anything?
No, due to a scheduling conflict, I was on an airplane during the Heritage Commission meeting, so I was not able to attend. But I am looking forward to attending the meeting this month, which I will be in town for.
I have nothing.
I should be able to remember a planning board, but I'm physically separated from my brain, which is my computer.
Oh,
There was
okay.
a planning board meeting and it's online if anyone wants to watch.
Thank you. Town managers report.
Yeah, as I pull this one up, I'll remember what's in there. I do know, for staff, I usually start with the staff report. Not much has changed. We have put out the facility manager position. So we have received applications for that. I know I talked to Jim Taylor today and he's going to be working on setting up interviews this next week. So we're hopeful on that and we'll find the right person. We still do have the recreation director and the administrative assistant human services administrator positions that have been, we've made those positions available and we have 2 people that will be starting next week, both the rec director and the human services administrator. So they're starting next Monday on the 13th and we'll spend a day or so in training and just teaching them a little bit about the town of Enfield. And then once they start, I'll either bring them in and introduce them to you or at least give you guys the names of the people that we.
Where is the facilities manager on our website?
Yeah, it was on our website. We put it out on Facebook and it was on Indeed and posted around the town. There it is. The surplus equipment that we put up for sale, the Ford F-350, Ford Taurus, and steam washer, all sold. The Ford F-350 sold for $3,000, the Ford Taurus for $4,850, and the steam washer for $4,250, for a total of $12,100 in revenue from those
That's
three
worthwhile.
pieces of equipment. So yeah, that was a pretty good sale. As you guys may have heard, there was a warning for a cyanobacteria bloom in Mascoma Lake. It was tested and released on 6/3. It will be retested this week, so we'll be continuing to watch that. We ask people to watch for the bloom and, you know, be careful if they're in the water at all. And shower afterwards and stay away. They did not release if there was any toxins present when they did that, but they will be retesting. I'd like to thank the Mascoma Lake Association. They got signs out pretty quickly after that was released, so people knew it was there. We did send, or Elisa sent out a town employee later that weekend, but the signs were already out, so I appreciate them getting those out ahead of us, making sure people were aware.
I was really surprised about that. I thought they usually come only in warm weather. So this was a little unusual.
Little
At
early.
first, I thought it was a hoax, to tell you the truth, but then it was there on the town site.
So the water SRF loan and ARPA loan that we had went through with the 1.52 million in loans and 380,000 in ARPA grant funds, that was approved by Governor Council, and we've received the final approved contract of that. So that went through and everything was approved, and we'll be continuing on that project. We're still waiting for final word on the wastewater project, but we expect that to pass as well. We did submit, as we discussed with you, the $50,000 gopher funding for the striker cot for the ambulance and the LED sign for in front of the community building. We did learn going through this that there was a 10% match or $5,000 that we had to put in, and the state through the gopher funds would put in the $50,000. I worked with the police chief and Richard from the ambulance, and we're going to be able to fund the $5,000 out of the budget that was already approved. So we went ahead and submitted that, and we did hear today that that has been approved, and we'll be moving forward with the purchases. So I'd also like to thank the police chief for that. He did a lot of work on the sign, put out the RFP. We actually had a sign person come in and demo some signs, and I think we'll have a really good product from that. So it's been a good process. The MFAC design team held their first meeting on May 24th, and we'll be holding our second meeting on June 14th at 3:30 in the community building, and we'll be meeting the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month as we move forward with that. Kind of building on that, I wanted to give the select board a facilities funding update. I had talked to you last meeting about the way that I was talking about breaking up the loans. After further discussion with Rennell, our bond counsel from Divine Millment, Mascoma Bank, and USDA, I've decided that we're changing that funding model slightly, and we're going to take out the entire loan of $7,259,066 for the public safety building through Mascoma Bank, still at that 3.15% over an amortized 30 years with that one adjustment at the 20-year mark, like I discussed. And then we're going to work with USDA to take out the $4,764,9850 that we have right now for the Whitney Hall project. Because of the $10 million cap and some timing at USDA, I don't think we'll be taking that out till January timeframe, but we'll be working with them, and we think we have a good plan moving forward. It looks like USDA will be somewhere around that 3% mark in January, but we won't know until we get a little bit closer. That's what we're working on right now. Mascoma Bank will be used when you do a USDA loan. You need some short-term financing to move through that, and Mascoma Bank will be used for that short-term financing. So as we move through, we'll finalize that and make sure the select board's aware. And it also looks like we'll be coming to you at the June 20th meeting for some approvals on the Mascoma Bank loan.
When you say short term, do we, because there's money that was set aside for this process, not a large amount, but would that be used first before we go taking out?
Yeah, we'll continue to look and we'll figure out, you know, with all of our partners, the best way to do this to make the most sense and keep the cost down for them.
I'd rather briefly even borrow from ourselves, but not if it costs.
And that's my town manager report.
Chief Holland, you have someone to introduce?
I do. Thank you very much. This used to be a tradition that we had, and it kind of went away a little bit. I'd like to bring it back. So, Jesse Bachman, one up here. So Jesse just graduated the 16-week academy. It's a 16 weeks to graduate academy, over 900 learning hours. Is now a full-time certified officer. Jesse is new to our law enforcement community. He is in New Hampshire. His wife Katie is here, and their daughter, she's also in law enforcement, so they are definitely a community-related family. And so I definitely wanted to introduce him to the select board and to people that attended the select meeting and do our ceremonial swearing in.
Thank you. Whereas there's a vacancy in the office of police officer in the town of Enfield, and whereas we have confidence in your abilities and integrity to perform the duties of the said office, we do hereby appoint you, Jesse Bauman, as police officer. Do you, Jesse, solemnly swear you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on you as a police officer according to the best of your abilities, agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Welcome to the town of Enfield. Next, we have Wendy Piper making a presentation for the
Yeah,
Grafton
please do.
County Commissioner's proposed 2023 budget.
That's right. So, thank you for having me back for the yearly visit. So I'm sure you've read the narrative, and what I'll do is just cover the highlights. This actually makes me lightheaded when I'm talking.
Why don't you take it off? You're at a good distance.
Thank you. Just almost immediately a headache starts. So as I said, I think that you've probably read the narrative, and so I'll just talk about highlights from it and then ask if you have any questions. I know there was a pretty extensive article in the paper about the wage study for one thing. But like many municipalities, the cost of fuel and inflation coupled with a loss in revenue for the nursing homes specifically because of COVID has really put us in a dire situation. And because of that, the commissioners elected to use 1.9 million in a lost, I should say, the county got $17.1 million in ARPA funding. We got it in 2 allotments. We've just now gotten our second allotment of 8 million. But part of that funding, there's a $10 million allotment that you can take. It's called lost revenue or revenue loss. It's a standard allowance of $10 million. So we took that and it can apply to operating expenses. All the other funds are restricted. And I can talk more about what we're hoping to spend the funding on. So without that $1.9 million to bring the budget down, it would have been a 2.97% increase in expenses. Not bad. But with it, we're coming in under our last year's budget by, what is it, 9.6, I think, something, I'm sorry, that figure was just in front of me and now it's gone. And I want to say, okay, a decrease of 0.16, 0.16. Let me just read it quickly. I'm sorry, honestly, it's been a very hard weekend. And I just found out about Don, who I talked to any number of times and enjoyed immensely, and I'm a little off my game. That and the loss of the priest over on 4A. It's quite a weekend for Enfield, so let me get back on track here. So it would have been a 0.93 decrease. And so the county has elected to bring down that amount by 1.9 million. Having said that, I just talked to my county administrator about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and that's changed, and it's changed in a good way. We're still using funding. We're still using funds to bring down the budget, to bring down the expenses, but instead of using ARPA funding, because it's limited, we're using our undesignated fund surplus. And so, or undesignated fund balance rather. So as you know, it should be a fund balance should be between 8 and 16%. Is that right? 7 and 15, 8 and 16%. Ours is 20%.
Whoa.
We just got hit with a whole ton of, the federal government is a funky thing. We just got hit with a bunch of revenue, new revenue for the nursing department. And so there was some concern about using ARPA funding because, of course, it runs out for operating expenses. We did consider that when we constructed this budget, but we were confident in changes to come that we would be able to bring those expenses back into the regular budget without any problem. But since we got this money, we're opting to use the undesignated fund balance instead. And I think Julie Libby, County Administrator, just told me this afternoon that it's coming down even more. And I was like, okay, well, that's, excuse me for saying this, I guess it is an election year. So, maybe folks are concerned about that. Just a couple of other comments before I ask you for any other questions is that as you've read and as you saw in the paper, I'm sure, we had a big wage study. We found that we were 2.2% below market. I think the paper said 3%, it's actually 2.2%. And the whole purpose of the wage study was to recruit and retain because we face such a dire labor shortage at the county. We're down 40 nursing staff, 40 nursing staff. That's LNAs, LPNs, and RNs. So the situation is very challenging right now. And so the way that we are using the results of the wage study is to, so the spread was the spread of increases to bring people onto the new wage scale. The spread of increases ranges from 1% to about 13%. The people that are on the lower rungs of the wage scale are getting the highest raises, the most significant increases, I should call them. And the reason for that is because those folks tend to be in the lesser skilled areas, and we're competing, and I'm sorry to say this, but we're competing with Walmart, for instance, up there. It's a very isolated rural environment, and it's those lesser skilled, lesser paid positions that we're having the highest turnover for the longest period of time. So that's what we're doing. The folks at the top of the ladder are getting the lowest. In addition to that, we've instituted shift differentials, just hitting some highlights of the budget, shift differentials for evening and weekend care in the nursing home for the staff there to increase morale. retention and recruitment. And I would just, I guess, point your attention to, or talk about just a few more things. There are, this is the proposed budget, you know, the delegation will still vote on it at the end of the month. We are recommending 3 new positions, and those are in dispatch, which is a very valuable part of our sheriff's department. We bring in lots of fees through providing dispatch services. We've expanded the dispatch services to include a little bit over into Vermont and north into Coos. They've asked us for service that increases the fees that we get, so it increases revenue, but we are in a position to need more help in the dispatch department. So in dispatch and also maintenance, we have highly skilled individuals working in the trenches. And so those are the supervisors who aren't able to do supervisory tasks. The majority of the board, myself included, the majority of the board felt that because of COVID, we had kind of starved the county for a couple of years. We kind of starved it because, you know, starved the county government because we were trying really hard to hold on with all of the expenses from COVID. And so this year, with the additional funds, we decided to hire dispatch and maintenance. And of course, now we're not using ARPA because those are ongoing. These are ongoing expenses, and we'll be, working them into the budget and using the undesignated fund balance. The last full-time position that we've requested, and I find myself at the Board of Commissioners often being a swing vote between 2 very different perspectives. And this was a tough one for me, but we are requesting a new HR, Human Resources Recruitment and Retention Specialist. The reason being that the situation is so challenging. It's $57,000 a year. The Human Resources Director requested this as a means by which to maximize she has a new wage chart, she's got solid benefits to work with, salaries that are at market value, but she requested a specialist that could be dedicated full-time to this. I asked her the tough question. I'm a little known for my tough questions, I guess. I asked her the tough question, think it's going to work? And who knows? We don't know. We don't know if it's going to work. And then the default position was that we are short-staffed and have been in the HR department for a long time. It's usually a ratio of, I think, what is it? Well, we have 2 full-time staff. I think it's 2 per 100, and it's advised that it be 3 full-time staff per 100 employees. I think I've got that right. And so we've been operating a little understaffed for a long time. But I'll be very honest and tell you particularly why I supported it. So I have 2 towns and 1 city in my district. I go around and visit the local governments specifically about this every year. And the one question that I am always asked is, what are you doing about the contract nursing line? And so I wanted to be able to say, we are doing everything that we can possibly do. So contract nursing is up by another 500,000. That's nationwide. It's a national problem. I just heard a senator, I was listening to a Senate hearing on C-SPAN. Excuse me if I sound defensive, but we get a lot of incoming over it. I just listened to a senator ask a question of the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. What are you going to do? This is the United States Senate. What are you going to do about the price gouging by the contract nursing agencies? So nurses are leaving our facility, local nurses. That's right. Yeah, they live there. They're leaving our facility, Kate knows, and going to work for a contract agency. And we've just said, no, you cannot come back here to work as and make $50 an hour as an LNA. You know, we'll part company. We don't want to enable that. But the contract nursing line is up. The good news is, it's, you know, you have to sort of squint an eye to see it as good news, but we take anything. The good news is that because we're so short-staffed, those positions aren't filled, and that offsets the cost of the travel nurses that come in. So the wage study, the new positions, the undesignated fund, that's breaking news. It's not, even the other commissioners don't know it yet. I want to talk to you, if I can, for just a second about the nursing home. I also happen to be the president of the New Hampshire Association of Counties, as well as the current chair of Grafton. And it's just really a dire problem with the nursing homes. This is universal. I mean, it's throughout all of, as you know, some private nursing homes have closed down in the state. And we're at 70% staffing across the state. And so the revenue is down. And I just sort of want to, it's kind of a philosophical question, but I want to bring it to your attention. And so originally this began because of COVID. Because of, nurses are putting themselves in harm's way. They're possibly endangering residents. They're possibly infecting themselves. They're bringing it home to their families. And so we lost a lot of staff. And the census, the population at the nursing home was down. That's how it started. And then, as you know, and I approve of these, the federal government, CMS, put through vaccination mandates. And the majority of the board, I'm one of them, voted to accept the vaccine mandate. If we hadn't done that, we would have lost our federal funding, which means that we would have closed. And in addition to closing the nursing home, we would have been fined for every day that we were out of compliance. And so it was a very difficult decision on the part of the board. They were strong, and a senator was there, a state senator was there arguing against it, but we did it to keep the nursing home open and to protect our residents. That's causing us to lose employees, and so I just kind of want to, it's on my mind. And I just, as I reviewed my notes, these are just, they're just, and then, we had a campus-wide mask mandate that the majority, I think actually the whole board instituted that, I'm happy to say. And we had the vaccine mandate. But then we found that you really couldn't, you really couldn't distinguish between vaccinated and unvaccinated at the nursing home. We distinguished between, we were trying to encourage vaccination. And so if you missed work, but you were vaccinated, the county would pay for your time off. If you missed work because of COVID and you were unvaccinated, a decision was made that I supported by the Human Resources Department to not pay the time off. And we were trying to encourage it. The employees challenged that policy after a while because it was just a big mishmash. Vaccinated, I'm vaxxed, boosted, you name it, I got it, and I think we all know that it's meant to prevent death and hospitalization. But at the time, we were also thinking that it would prevent illness, and so that was challenging. And if you just let me say one more thing, and that is about the nursing home, is that the nurses who want to work with geriatric patients are not those who come fresh out of nursing school. And they're not those that have Bachelor of Science in nursing. And the New Hampshire Nursing Association, working with the state, has really prioritized four-year degrees because of places like Dartmouth Hitchcock. And so there has been a new policy, it's in the works, put through, or in the works anyway, at CMS. It's the Center for Medicaid Services, Medicare and Medicaid Services. There's a policy coming through that is going to change the way that Medicaid and Medicare pays us. And it's going to be based on the number of RNs that you have on staff. So if you know any legislators well, I know a few, if you know any legislators well, put a bug in their ear about that. The last thing that we need is a requirement for, 2 versus 1 RN. That's what it would be. Normally we have to have 1 RN on staff, and the national federal regulations are coming down that there would have to be 2. And that's just not, it's just a top-down control that is really tone deaf to the needs of nursing homes. Craig Labor, a nursing home administrator, is on it. As the president of the NHAC, I talked to our, we don't want to call it lobbyist, advocate. She's contacted all of our federal delegation. They're working on it. That's the news. I'll stop. Sorry.
Thank you.
For stopping, John?
No, for your presentation, thank
Do
you.
you have an idea, in the past, sometimes you come with an amount, an estimated amount for Enfield?
We haven't got it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to wait for the Department of Revenue. That's the thing too. I should say that, right, as a reminder that what we're doing at the county, right, totally depends
Yep.
upon the valuation. I know you know that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
So-
just was curious if we had an idea yet.
Yeah.
Other questions? Wendy, thank you very
Am I
much.
free to go?
You are.
No,
Thank
it's
you
a
for
pleasure.
coming.
You bet. It's a pleasure. Thank you. See you up there sometime or down here.
See you soon, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, yes.
Next, we have under communications, a letter from the Conservation Commission regarding wildlife crossing sign.
While you're looking at that, I did attend this meeting when they first talked about it. These signs were approved by Jim Taylor of where they were looking at putting them before they come to you. The one caution I had for the Conservation Commission, and I would like to just express it to the select board, not necessarily on these signs, but we need to be careful on how many signs we put up, because the more signs we get, they start to become more and more white noise, and people aren't looking at them.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. That there are already some places where the state signs are getting there, white noise.
Oh my gosh, on Main Street. It's right near Sargent, I think
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. It's like bang, 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 and you're
Yeah,
like, which
right.
sign am I supposed to be reading where?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I have mixed feelings about, we have deer downtown and across from the roller ring and up in the commercial section, so I don't know, is public safety wise, is this, I understand why the Conservation Commission is doing this, and I understand their respect their view on wildlife. We all have to live with them, but in Enfield, like, we see a lot of wildlife downtown pictures, right? Sometimes a listserv is a day of who undermined what, and there's a bear downtown. Will this help us from a safety perspective? I don't know.
You could make a case that almost all of Shaker Hill Road is a wildlife crossing area. And so I have to be very careful driving home at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've been for almost 3 years now, I've been trying to get the state to put deer crossing signs just for Shaker Hill. And I had to provide the data to them to show how many deer strikes we have a year in this mountain. I did all that, so we're on their list.
So what is your feeling? I mean, does one wildlife crossing sign in each direction on Shaker Hill do it? I mean, I would hate to see like 5 wildlife crossing signs on,
I think one in each direction would be.
one in each direction.
For Shaker Hill, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, because, and like, I think both yourself and Kate had alluded to was a deer or a bear can jump out in front of you anywhere on Shaker Hill at any time.
Yeah.
And so I think one sign each way, for people who aren't used to the area, might, maybe it makes them go, but.
I think that's probably who we're talking about.
You know, it
Yeah.
makes them kind of pay a little closer attention. I think anything else becomes white noise.
Yeah.
I also think as part of the kind of complete streets discussion about how we approach our management and not just trying to like sign things to death or police them or do just, we have options like painting the road a little more narrow in some places if we can convince the state to do that, right? Like there's an option to narrow the white lines and do like a bike lane or something, and that naturally slows people down. So using some of those things that are, you know, not like a sign rally, because we have other driving, pedestrian, horse, all the things issues in this town.
Yeah.
So just getting people to be more cognizant of their surroundings, and I think this is just my generic view, but I feel that during COVID, people forgot a little bit how to share the road because it was so empty for a little bit, and they got used to just passing through. And so there's definitely a little more challenge, like about how people are driving and like, oh, that's actually a stop sign at Potato, like, yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Chief, have you seen this
I have no.
list from them of where they're wanting to put them?
You wanna- Yeah, I would feel most comfortable if he helps with
Yeah.
the locations as our.
I would agree with that.
safety Leader.
And I'm inclined to postpone this in terms of any decision till the police department has had a chance to thoroughly review it.
Yeah, and look at incidents.
Yeah.
I'll put together for the select board I can give you the numbers for these roads.
Yeah, that would
So
be,
you actually have hard numbers to look at.
that'd be excellent. Hard numbers are good.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, and just a rough, a recommendation on location, in terms of, you know, where people are gonna be able to see it so that it's useful and it's a good tool and not just another sign.
Yeah, I can put together a map like I did for the,
Don't say
like
it.
I did for the MFAC.
Oh,
for
I thought you were gonna say the other
where-
word.
Right. No, like what we did for the MFAC where
Yes,
we were able to
yes.
plot the
Sorry.
numbers of things I can do and where they actually
Yeah.
were. So I can definitely provide some data for this that'll show
Yeah.
clusters if there are any for specific roads or if it's, I mean, if you talk about, you know, and I'm just throwing, you know, Jones Hill, if you're talking that, you know, if we look at, say, I'm just throwing numbers out there, there's 15 deer strikes in a 2-year period, but they're from the beginning to the end, well, then a sign is white noise. If it's,
Yeah.
if we have a certain curve that seems to be a cluster, then that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can put that together.
And the deer are getting so used to us too, you know, they don't run.
Or they run in front of you, which is my favorite. It's like, you may not use the road with me, sorry.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, next, under business, we have,
Aaron has a question.
oh, Eric, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, if, Roy, when you're pulling the data, if there are places that already have signs, if you could pull the data for right near those as well, we could see whether the current signs are being effective or not.
Sounds good.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
point, yeah. Thank you. Crosswalks.
That was my ask.
Start.
Well, it was my ask because I've been approached by a number and varied individuals where I don't feel like they're the same subset of people who are talking to each other, who are struggling with traffic, again, on Route 4, our favorite intersection at Jake's, which we know we did not make a mess of, but our other friends did make a mess, and I will continue to beat that dead horse, unfortunately, because that was not a good choice of words. I apologize. Beat that subject. And I think, so that intersection, which I know we have a plan for, and the one across the elementary school, again, lack of paint, lack of people paying attention. I'll call it personalities. And I understand, I remember when we had the discussion on eliminating the High Street veterans one.
It's already done.
I know, and that actually turns out to not have maybe have been the most popular thing for some people. Because they're not gonna, when they're coming down, they don't go down to elementary school and then cross, right? Now, I know you can cross anywhere, but, and there was the whole liability discussion, but then over on 4A, and I'm gonna say street light, because we left the street light for pedestrians to cross in front of La Salette. That's always an area that I worry about because of the speed, because it feels very open and people book it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been passed on the yellow line and I'm like, you're gonna run over someone at the museum next. So I'm just concerned about what we can do to slow people down, say, just a brief slowdown, right? In downtown, like Lebanon has those kind of cool near the fire department traffic calming medians, and then they recently put in the planters, and I've seen like the little bumps, but are we able to do some kind of traffic calming that doesn't make every plow driver want to toss us off a cliff? Or is there something we can do that's like a natural visual so that we're not having people constantly calling the police, fighting each other, walking at the crossing guard? I don't know.
But these are all state roads we're talking about.
I know, we're gonna have to do some hard asks on these because they have not been the most cooperative, and I will go at this again and again. I understand they feel like they've done an excellent job with intersections, but at the high school and the Jake's intersection are proof that that is not the case.
I can add. So, the two crosswalks on Route 4, at the elementary school and at Jake's, they're slated for, so it's the end of 2023, I think early 2024 is the Route 4 project, which is gonna go from from Lebanon through Enfield, and it'll stop just before Mickey's. They'll do that bridge right there. So we as a town agreed with the state last year when we were they were finalizing it or working on the plan, that those are gonna become enhanced crosswalks, which I very much like the ones down in Hanover.
Yeah.
If you go to Hanover, and I think Kate, it's the same one you're kind of talking about, Lebanon, right? They flash, they're well painted, they draw drivers' attention. I believe those two lights on the side of the road on both sides, especially now, really draw people's attentions to the lights, to the crosswalks. So we as a town agreed, so the state said, hey, you can put those wherever you want, you're gonna pay for them. So they don't care if we put them in, but we got to pay for them. And if I remember correctly, the cost is about $25,000 each. And so Enfield said right away, we definitely wanted to do the school and the Jakes. The two on, really it's free. I'm going to throw the beach crosswalk
Yeah, the beach was the
in
other
as
one.
well. If we're talking safety, I think the $25,000 is well worth it. And I think those main crosswalks that we have that are used by a lot of people should be enhanced crosswalks. The question is, with Route 4, this would be a question, I can pose to the state is that we're waiting for this Route 4 project to come through, because if we put it in now, they're gonna rip it up. And then we're gonna have to pay to reinstall it. And, they are pretty, I think this year, end of 2022, early 2023 is supposed to be their information campaign of what's gonna happen. For instance, they're talking about a rotary down near the Main Street Route 4 intersection.
Rotaries are my favorite.
And stuff like that. So next year, end of this year, start next year is gonna be that campaign of information to the communities to kind of get the input and stuff like that. So if we paid $50,000 for those two now, we're gonna pay a good sum again in another, 6 to 8 months after that, when they finally come through and do the construction. Route 4A, I think that project got pushed out again. So that might be, it might be interesting to look at that, what the cost is to put in several there. Like I said, at least the one at the stone dwelling, that one's used often.
I mean, it's part of the museum and it's a little bit of a bend and
Yeah.
people feel like they're in an open field without houses to a certain extent.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they just, I know you guys see it in your
And-
data, they just book
And the
it.
one down I cringe, I'll be honest, I cringe every year at the beach parking lot.
Mhm.
It just, and we patrol it a lot, and if you look at our statistics, we stop a lot of cars in that area, because I don't want some family
No.
going to the beach to have their summer ruined by, and it affects the driver. Look at the crash that we had this past weekend. The driver wasn't speeding, and you would, based off of the investigation, wasn't speeding, and you would think, the first thing that people say is, oh, I'm sure they were flying, they weren't, they were doing the posted speed limit, just a horrible tragedy. But again, in that area, that has a little less traffic going back and forth. The other two would be my main two. If we said, you said, hey, Roy, we could put one out of the three, I'd say the beach. If you said two out of three, I'd say the beach and the stone dwelling. If you said, hey, we can do all three, chief, I'd say, awesome, let's go, you know? But, anyway, I'll be long-winded. The state has basically said to us, well, we'll approve wherever you want to put it, because you're gonna pay for it. So that I kind of, back to the topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also it fosters the idea that you're going to slow down in this segment and set some expectations visually without putting people power on it as our first resort. I guess I like the visual before people power. I realize there's a cost.
I say the beach one first, not just because it's the very, obviously the most
Can't
used
see as
one,
well.
but it's also right at a speed limit change,
Mhm.
and you have, terrain change. And so I
Yes.
think those super bright lights that kind of get your attention there would be my first priority on 4A.
And if you're a parent dragging a kid, a cooler, and I don't know what, across or multiple, it's a real challenge because the next thing you hit is a set of stairs. If you're brave, or you're gonna walk up the side of the road, which makes me even more nervous. I know that we're gonna have an opportunity to probably change that eventually, but it's also, in addition to being heartbreaking, it's expensive for families and friends to lose their loved ones, and it's expensive to turn out everybody in town. I think it's a small price to pay. But I'd love in the meantime if we could get some paint on the ground somehow. I mean, getting paint on the ground for these crosswalks has been just silly. I'm not
It's-
blaming anybody in our town, but it's just, I know the state would rather dig a ditch than do this, but the ditch isn't gonna save someone to me as fast as the crosswalk would.
So in that, again, the paint part runs into the same issue that, like John said, they're state roads.
I know.
And so,
Can
I've,
we,
I've gone as far as like, ask Jim, hey, can we just paint them? And it becomes, it's kind of, Jim, as much as, he wants to, he definitely, wants to help us with that. He said, the problem is the minute, there's a lot of us have experience here, the minute we do it for the state, they'll never do it for us again. Oh, you did it, you can keep doing it. And then the other part is that the reason we had it this fall, we had the problem is there's the state has there's a real shortage of the special DOT paint that they have to use
Oh, right.
to actually.
there's
lay it
a
down, stuff like that.
sticker,
But I will start bringing, the years of the paint guy again. I actually have his number, so.
there's some kind of like instant dry sticker.
Yeah, they can melt down. It comes up really quickly when they plow.
Yeah, but I guess I would rather have a sticker over nothing
Yeah.
for the school year to kick it off. Like, I guess and especially like if we do like prioritize the beach crosswalk, because school is gonna be out by the time anything gets done, not to be silly and not that people won't use that one, but,
They always do the ones at the school for us in the fall before school. Well, this was the first year since I took over as chief that they did do it right before school. And I think it was like about a month after school started.
yeah, I was gonna say
But
it was definitely not
It
done.
starts about July, then I start bugging them to get it done before school starts.
Yeah, because I've already gotten bugged for next fall because this fall they didn't do it, which I understand, I really do. I just, want to see what we can do in terms of visual management to make people.
Are we good?
Thank
I
you.
would just say, and that's what I was thinking of coming in tonight, is to have a plan of what we'd like to do like that, and then we can go after the state and see what we can get.
Yeah. I mean, we can always tell our people who they can call. I
Yes,
always like that.
there you go.
They really enjoyed that last time.
Discussion of use of CIP capital reserve funds for land purchase.
So I had talked to you once before about the possibility of using the ARPA funds to purchase the land for the public safety building.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get too deep into this, I will let you know that I continue to get calls from people offering land for sale. We may have one that's offering land, so we'll continue to look at those, and we'll look at the overall cost of purchase versus construction. But with this, I've been talking with NHMA and I've been talking with Jim Raymond, trying to figure out, you know, how we could possibly do this. When I talked with NHMA on the ARPA funds and a little bit of looking through some treasury information, it appears we could possibly use the ARPA funds for land, but when you buy land with federal funds, there's a lot of strings attached to it. So, talking with NHMA, they highly recommended that we purchase it with other funds and then use the ARPA funds to offset those funds.
Yeah.
So our first initial discussion was to just purchase the land out of the budget, and then it's straight out of treasury that we can use ARPA funds to offset, you know, police salaries, DPW salaries. We could find that $500,000, I'm sure, if we wanted to do it that way. We started talking a little bit more, and I just thought it made a little bit more sense about possibly using CIP funds to purchase the land, and then using ARPA funds to purchase the ambulance coming up, the cruisers coming up. We have a few years to use those funds. And we're sure that we could use the right amount to offset the CIP. So it would, I guess at the end of this would be the same as if we did use the CIP fund. So it was something that I wanted to talk to the select board with. I did talk, like I said, with Jim Raymond. We reviewed the CIP and the wording of the warrant article when it went in. We made some calls to DRA, and what we really would like to do is, if this is something the select board's interested in doing, then I'll talk with the CIP committee and the trustees to make sure that everybody's on board and agrees that these funds could be used for that and offset around. And that would give us a way of, I guess, in a way, using the ARPA funds without using the ARPA funds to actually purchase the money. So it would be offsetting the general cost of doing business as the government, which is what the Treasury says we have to do with these ARPA funds, since we've used them to replace revenue.
As long as we're sure this is totally legal.
I guess I would feel most comfortable if it was very well documented, like the flow ahead of time, because the number one complaint I get about CIP is that we always fish in it. And I'm pretty sure somebody who's a trustee or prior trustee will hit us up for that. And I don't think it's an unfair concern, because the idea was this was supposed to balance out taxes. And well, I realize this is going to be like a pass-through offset. How we talk to the public about it and explain it without seeming like we are pulling a fast one, because we aren't, right? We're trying to do this above board and follow the rules. But for someone who doesn't understand the complex process and all the rules, it's going to be, we're going to have to do a little work to educate people. And I want to make sure we do that piece so that later down the road, we don't have to stand on our head and try to reverse exploit it.
Yeah, we need to explain with great clarity,
Yes.
as simply as possible. Absolutely. I agree.
I'd love to know what Dan thinks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like, I wanted to bring this to you because we could do it through the 1-year budget process. It'd be a little bit harder, but we could make it happen, and we could make the purchase happen. And I thought it was a little cleaner, but I did see the explanation of kind of moving funds back and forth. But
I guess my first question is the land cost a part of the 7.2 million?
it's not, and we're not allowed to use the 7.2 million.
Okay. But here's throwing one out there. Can we use ARPA funds for the fire truck? That we haven't
You
gotten
can't,
yet.
no, we already have a loan on that, and you can't use it for debt service payments
We've already got a loan on something that
on the
we
fire truck.
haven't gotten yet,
We got
the new one.
yes,
Oh, okay. That takes care of that issue.
Good
I didn't
question.
think it was coming for another year.
well, we had to do the financing.
You have to do the whole big.
Yeah,
To lock
we had-
the
And
price
you have
of the
to
metal, right?
You have to make payments during the process of
And we
building.
paid that
Right.
one ahead so that we could save some money.
I
Yeah.
think they had to commit to the metal, if I remember right. There was some market.
Right.
I don't recall.
I don't remember all the details, but it was a market based.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can say is if you're going to use it, I mean, I think what's the balance now, like 1.3 million?
Somewhere around there.
And we're talking about 40% of the balance in CIP. As long as we can come up with stuff that CIP is not gonna have to. You know,
Yeah, I-
originally, we said we wanted to.
Yeah.
We had a recommendation of paying down the 2017 and 2018 because they were 4% loans and we were getting 0.1%. So I guess my thing is, as long as you can find ARPA funds to use on the ambulance and, you know, and cruisers and stuff like that, that are ARPA, that we won't have to then be taking money out. Or even more so, making more debt, because that's what we've been trying to do is we're trying to get to that point because we see interest going up, that we'd like to be paying cash for a lot of this stuff because, you know, even though interest rates are going up, the banks aren't giving you any more than the 0.1%.
Mhm.
If you're lucky, you're getting 0.3%
Yeah.
through an internet bank. So I guess that's my only thing is, as long as you can find ways for the ARPA, can ARPA be used for infrastructure also? As
Yes.
in
Yeah.
bridges?
Yes.
Yes.
Because that, our next big one is that CIP's got is going to be the Bog Road Bridge. And that's probably close to $500,000. So if we could use ARPA funds there and not have a 10 or 15-year loan, you might be okay there. I just, you know,
No, and I agree with Kate. I think having this fully mapped out of exactly what
Yeah.
we're gonna do, I just didn't want to put all.
Yeah,
that
so it's a
work in
flow
if
chart.
it
Yeah,
was-
absolutely. No, I understand in the first instance, why it's not here.
I mean, we're gonna be
Yeah.
putting 600,000 in this year, I think. It's,
Eric's been waiting for a little while.
Eric,
Go for it.
Yeah, I would basically just reiterate, that the very clear accounting, written down, here's what's happening is really critical. And then sort of what Dan's getting at, another big piece of the discussion with the CIP is if we go this route, you essentially remove the ability to borrow for a number of the next couple items that we purchased because we can't pay debt service. So we're making the decision to pay cash for those items now, which any implications of that need to be thought through because anything paid for through the ARPA funds would be cash payments and you lose your debt flexibility. And the timing seems to be very good for that. But we just want to make sure we understand, potential implications 2 years from now from that decision as well.
I mean, the CIP is really 5, is it 5?
5 years.
So we could potentially, I know it's not perfect, but we could look at our 5-year cash forecast.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an easy exercise, but that would give us a better idea about what Eric is saying.
Well, and the ARPA has to be obligated by 2024 and spent by 2026, so it has to be within that time frame.
So you may want to move some stuff that are 5 years out, 3 years out.
Mhm.
You may want to do the Bog Road Bridge a year earlier if you could use ARPA funds for it.
Have we already bonded Oak Hill?
Oak Hill, we've gotten the loan, yeah.
Oh, that's right. So
We haven't gotten on the second piece though, have we?
Yeah.
Have we gotten on the 130,000 that could approve this year too?
Well, that was approved at town meeting and that's coming from undesignated funds.
And that's cash
Yeah.
anyway, so, okay,
So, okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Which we could possibly use that, and we can look at some ways. It doesn't all have to come from one, but if we spin it out of CIP, then we would have to put it there.
Yep.
But
And
I
I
wanted
think
to have
whatever
a
motion,
discussion to see if it was even on the table.
whatever motion we make should be very specific that if it comes out, it goes back in. Because I don't want any arguing later about whether it goes back in.
Yeah, we'll make a conscious decision of what we're gonna spend the ARPA funds on. But I wanted to have these discussions before we
Mhm.
got too deep into that to make sure everybody was on board.
and also we're gonna have to, at town meetings, when they see this a $1.3 million CIP, and they're going, well, why do you keep adding the nickel? Because we've got these projects down the line that we're going to have to pay cash for.
Mhm.
Okay. Policy review, first disposition of town property.
I liked the updates they.
Yeah. Yeah, the changes made are good. Mhm. Do you need a motion from us to accept this?
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion that we accept the revised policy for the disposition of town property.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank
for-
you. Ordinance, use of tobacco and vaping devices on public property. We need to set a public hearing date.
If you wanted to move forward.
Yeah, so we had a discussion a few weeks ago about tobacco on
Mm-hmm.
town property. From that, I created this ordinance, using some from some other places, kind of mashed them together. We did discuss this at the executive team, just to kind of talk through everything. One of the policies I found had cannabis in it, and we decided that that was a good thing to leave in there and to keep, just to make sure that it was identified well. And so with that, we wanted to bring this to you. If the select board likes it, being an ordinance, I'd like to set a public hearing for a different date, giving people time to look at the ordinance and to be educated enough to speak at a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the description, one of the questions I think you have to like kind of handhold people a little bit. So I think we have to say town property, because remember with the masking, we got into, if I'm in my own yard, do the rules apply? And I think we should answer that question up front, like in a very pointed way. So, well, we know this policy is for the town. It's not always obvious to people when they read these.
So public town-owned facilities and outdoor spaces.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know whether we want to list such as. So always a danger we'll leave something out, but, you know, gotta make clear that includes the recreational fields, right?
I think
field.
they
Yeah.
talked a little bit about signage too, though. Maybe that's something for the new.
Yeah, we can
Person
work
is-
on signage once we do this, but yeah, we'll work on that wording.
I guess, instead of a slash, I'd like to see purpose and rationale and applicability and scope. And I know it's a picky point, but just an ampersand, whatever, but, because it's not like and or, so those.
That will be an exciting public hearing.
It will be.
I think this is an important discussion to have with the community about their feelings and to hear from them.
Okay, next.
So
up.
when do we want the public hearing?
Oh,
We
when?
Want to have it come back to you before that date.
Um,
We need enough time to get the word out.
Beginning of, oh no, because when's the first one in July? Is that too close to when people are gone?
It's near the holidays, the second, yes. So I think you're meeting on Tuesday because the fourth, I think, is in Monday.
I think that's too close with people traveling
Yeah,
to solicit people's, and not that they can't log in online, but I'd like.
The 20th
Second,
be too close?
the next 2 weeks from now. I mean, I'll be
yeah,
here.
20th is good.
Eric,
He's nodding yes.
okay.
Yes, I'm here that week.
Okay. All right. Then we have, Bud Lynch would like to be appointed to the Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee, which makes perfect sense to me.
It does, however.
However,
Do we
You
have
have
enough?
a 9-member board and there are 9 members
Oh.
currently.
Can we make him an alternate?
Could make him an
so we'd have to communicate with him about that.
I've already told Meredith that she suggested it.
Yep.
But the committee's full.
Okay,
So
I'll make a motion. We appoint Bud Lynch as an alternate to the Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee.
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye. And then we just have a letter of resignation by Sam Eaton, Capital Improvement Program Committee. Do we need to acknowledge that or just read it?
I think you would treat the same as you've done others and acknowledge it.
Okay.
accept
I
it.
move that we accept the resignation.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. And then there are appointment forms for signatures. There are some informational items.
If anybody wants to read the entire village budget, I do have a copy.
I usually do,
Sure
but
you're
that's
aware
not
of
gonna
that.
be me this year.
I gave you the highlights.
I think that
I
was.
like
great.
highlights. That's good.
As much as I love financials, this is not gonna be my $100 shop. Okay, I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
Do-
Oh, public comments. Or from those visiting virtually comments. I have sort of a comment. I understand that I can understand why that the Lakeside Cemetery has been under lockdown recently, with a chain across and a padlock. We found that out when we went up to take care of my parents' graves.
I think you mean the Lock Haven.
Is that what I said?
Oh,
You mean Lock Haven, I
Oh,
think.
that's what I'm sorry. I said Lakeside, didn't I? Yes. Yeah, and, so, and apparently there've been some sort of damage done up there.
So I was personally there when my child tried to pick up some form of illicit substance pipe. Which I did send in pictures, but those are not the only things we're finding there, and the list is pretty gruesome of what I saw.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of evidence at the top of a lot of drugs.
Boxers, condoms.
Decided to put that across to discourage that.
I think-
Right, it also tends to discourage people from taking care of things they usually take care of up there. And so I'm wondering, and of course, the cemetery section is very nice, and she's very happy to come and open it. But that puts a little difficulty in the path of someone wishing to go there. And you know, excuse me, and if these were happening on Countryside Cemetery on Klug Road, we'd be all over that, right? Police would be investigating. And nobody's really paying attention to Lock Haven Cemetery, but at the very least, there should be a key in the town office that's available for someone to pick up, go open it, and return it. And then we're not having to negotiate with anyone.
I thought they were gonna put a clip or leave it open.
Well, tonight it was open, because I checked.
Okay, that's what my understanding was. They were gonna leave it open, but the chain across so that you could open it.
Last time I went, it was padlocked.
Right,
And
yeah.
so I don't know, if there's a policy, we're gonna leave it open, just clipping it shut, so anyone can just go and open it, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we can look at some different ways of doing it and maybe start with something not
Right.
as secure as that, and if we start having more problems, of course, the police will be up
That
there.
road needs to be.
Oh, yeah,
redone,
that
too.
road's a disaster.
And they have specific funds for that cemetery. So I know that was on the project list at one
But-
point. And it would make sense to me as they're doing it, to make it maybe a little passable area for those who chose to drive up to the chain at least and walk.
Yeah.
If for some reason they weren't able to get around it, because they were driving vehicles up and it was hard to tell. So my kid is obsessed with cemeteries, so I've gone quite frequently, and I picked up anything I felt I could pick up safely, but it's a lot, and it's awful. Oh, and Angus is on.
I was able to drive up in my Volkswagen Jetta, so the road is passable.
Angus is on.
Angus. Can't hear you yet.
There you go.
Unmute.
Now you have to unmute.
We still can't hear you.
She clicked allow,
I did click allow.
top of the screen.
No, then I have no choice, I don't have any choice. Did what I could.
He's gonna write us a sign. Well, fine, we know each other well.
Yeah, he should be able to click on the mic at the top of the screen and it work, but apparently not.
I wonder if, are you in the web version? Oh,
What does that say?
Still says only organizers can unmute. No, really? Because I did.
I wonder, is it because he,
Let me see if I can change it another way.
we could pick on Alice for a second and see if she can unmute.
Yeah.
This is like that.
Oh, I
right
didn't
along.
unmute
Okay.
her, so let's see.
Okay.
There, I did the only other change I can do. No,
Ours didn't change,
well, I didn't allow her. I
but you just
could.
allowed everybody.
Well, sort of. Well, she's
Alice,
allowed now.
yeah. Alice, do you have an unmute button?
Yeah, I can unmute now.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what's wrong with Angus.
I'm on a Mac.
Oh.
We're gonna do a
I'm
test
on-
thing.
I'm on a Mac as well.
Yeah. Can you turn Angus off and back on?
I could
Okay.
disable it. And allow that.
Wow. Try again.
He's raising his hand.
Nope.
Nothing. Come on. I can't help you.
Can you write to us? We have that disabled too, don't we?
Well, we have the chats disabled because then people in the audience here can't see it. So it's not a fair.
Right. Could we do it and read it for this?
We can do that. Hold on, what?
Wait, it says allow mic for attendees is off.
Well, I just turned that on when I left before. Oh,
Save.
save. Let's try that.
How about that?
Oh!
That's funny because I didn't have to do anything special for Alice.
I wish it was worth the wait. All I really have to say is like, we have a trustees meeting on Thursday and I'm happy to bring any recommendations. And we've certainly discussed the fact that it's a problem that needles are showing up and I know Bridget's on top of it, but if any of y'all have any ideas how we could go further in addressing it beyond cleaning it up and keeping the chain up, I mean, we're certainly all ears.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with keeping the chain up. I think there's nothing wrong even with having a padlock, as long as there's a sign there that says, if you wish to entrance, pick up the key from the town office.
Maybe Public Works, which is closer.
Or Public Works, or one or the other.
Yeah.
We could have two keys, my God, we can afford that.
DPW makes sense because it is quite a bit closer.
I think this is problematic, like we've had a little trouble with the beach parking lot, right? It's that they can drive up and in, and we have, I mean, in Oak Grove Cemetery, which is not a town one, has had some issues. And it just will make bad choices.
Well, we can look at it. a few
And it
different
would
ways.
be good if the police, as they're driving by, I'm not saying they should drive up there, but as they're just cruising by that road, should glance up there and say, is there anyone up there?
Oh, I drive right up and then I check to see if there's any more stuff around because I'm sick of it. It's just awful. And I don't, that's not something I want my kids to see.
No,
Or
absolutely.
anybody.
I did not realize that
It
there
was
was that
awful.
sort of level
Like,
of stuff
And
going
you have
on.
a little kid who's like, what's that? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Bridget saw me like scrabbling after her. It was
Interesting, no vandalism to gravestones or anything.
There were beer cans and bottles in the graveyard, but they were mostly in town. There were a lot in the parking lot and around that tree. But there were quite a few that I picked out in town at one point. And I think Angus, you were out on tour with us on the same day. You took some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Like the not dangerous.
And that was 2 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a while ago. It's an ongoing problem for sure. I mean, we all grieve in our own ways, and I don't want to, I wouldn't wish harsh punishment on anyone who chooses to grieve irresponsibly, but yeah, but it's a problem, and it's a problem for kids seeing, and yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I don't have more to offer, but we'll discuss it at our meeting on Thursday, and I'll let you know if we come up with any ideas.
Great, wonderful. Thank you very much.
The other ideas, those little give at least the immediate families the code, like the flip-flops as another alternative, because I would think it would make sense that families, the town is very old. I mean, it's hard to get into no matter what, but Lock Haven is also hard to get into, but has I don't know. More recent burials, that's the correct
Well,
terminology.
Lock Haven still has
A couple.
spaces available, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just cremation lot.
yeah. So that newer area is still visited frequently.
Yes.
The old area is very historical, though. It's a neat place, if you like cemeteries. Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Yeah, I went to Coralie found a cute